All right, hi everybody. I'm Mark Sacknoff. Welcome to Brave Space.
I'm Ann May. Welcome to Brave Space.
And I'm Kevin Baker. Welcome to Brave Space.
So, how about setting an intention for today's conversation?
Glad to. Everything that we do here today and in this moment is for the greatest and highest good of all. Kevin, please release some sage to enter into our global space. Kindness and compassion, grace and forgiveness, and a space to create togetherness. In our difficult world and our difficult time, we welcome uncomfortable conversations. We welcome questions. We welcome answers. We welcome everyone's perspective in this space of healing, of comfort, of moving forward, of maybe some tears and some laughter. Thank you.
Thank you, Ann May.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Welcome to Detangling Perspectives. I'm your host, Kevin Baker. Are you ready to engage in meaningful healing work, both inside and out? This is an invitation to slow down, to breathe, and look inward. We will explore socialization, history, family, culture, and how they have shaped us, and how we can rewrite those stories with empathy, responsibility, and courage. This is not about blame or perfection, it's about becoming more human together. So, wherever you are in your journey, I'm glad you're here. Welcome again to Detangling Perspectives. Let's begin.
Drop. Drop.
So, Mark, what's our topic today?
Well, the question that people ask me, and again, I do not represent all white people, but what many of my white friends have been asking me when I tell them about these conversations is they ask me, why can't we all just get along? Why can't we all just get along? And I said, well, I'll ask my friends Ann May and Kevin.
That is such an interesting topic because the first thing that comes to my mind when we think about is why can't we all just get along? The first question that comes up is, in that are we thinking about our own actions? Right. So with those that ask the question, are you thinking about how you show up, or are you thinking about how others show up? Right. Because oftentimes the reflection is, why are Black people so angry?
Yes.
Right. And
I think that's a subtext to this question. Why can't we? It's been 200 years. Why can't we all get along?
Right. We didn't
We
do
have
it.
a we had a black president. Why can't we all get along?
We've made it.
Oh, God.
We've climbed the hill. We didn't enslave Black people. We didn't do that. But are you, or rather, and you are reaping the benefits of what your ancestors or the ancestors of the group in which you are identifying have done. Right. So because there are a lot of new white people in America who would say, well, my parents immigrated in the early 1900s, or we just arrived here. Right. I have a friend who's a German immigrant, right, who's gotten U.S. citizenship, and he's like, I'm not responsible for that. And I'm like, you're absolutely right. You're not responsible for that, but you're white. right? You have identified as white. So what that means is you have the benefits of whiteness anywhere you go. I told him if we were both standing outside and he slapped me, I call the police gonna come and talk to him first, right? Because he's white, right? So that part of it is there. And the anger part is when are white people going to get it and understand the benefits that they have being in this country and identifying as white? When are you going to understand the privilege? And even though you have had some struggles, right? Because we all struggle. We all walk into the wind, right? And we feel that resistance in all the things we do, and we work hard and we do all of those things. Often what we don't notice is the tailwind. What pushes us further? What pushes us faster, right? When you go to a job interview, you know, if the three of us went to a job interview and we're being interviewed by white men.
I'm not going in the accounting department.
Right. That's right. I mean, it's been proven that people tend to hire, you know, what makes them more comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And a lot of the organizations are ran and managed, and these departments are run by white people, right? White men, white women. And so they would tend to pick what looks like them. And that is, can y'all hear my phone?
A little bit, but it's okay. Keep going.
You know, I didn't put it on silent.
Kevin.
Right. Right. So they would tend to gravitate and pick those that look like them.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. So if the three of us went in for an interview, Mark would probably get the job. And that's the unconscious bias that comes up that people often don't want to realize or don't want to talk about in the cognitive dissonance. Right. And today I've heard numbers of white people talk about, again, this whole thing or resurgence of what is it, reverse discrimination coming up, or, you know, why am I being punished as a white male, or, you know, all of those things coming up as well. I still haven't gotten to the anger, but anybody want to add into the conversation before I just continue to talk?
Come on, May.
I'm wondering what was taken away versus what was suppressed. I wonder what causes that from a hereditary hostage space, meaning that did we inherit this belief? Did we see it in the eyes of our uncles, our aunties, our leaders, our loved ones? Did we just decide to inherit that same belief? And what do we need to update and upgrade that for everyone?
You know, a great question. And that kind of leads into the why Black people are angry, right?
Yeah.
Now, James Baldwin said, and this isn't a direct quote, but if you're Black in America, there is this undercurrent of anger that you feel. And that's because we're always on guard, right? Now we're in COVID. I heard about a survey the other day that said probably 50 to 60% of white people want to go back to the office, and about 6% of Black people want to go back.
Yeah, I read something like that. Why is that?
Because of the stress, the microaggressions, the bias, the dealing with white people that we don't want to have to deal with, right? Because of the unconscious and the lack of awareness of how people show up, right? So it is less stressful. I'm not going to say that the stress has gone away, right? Because we still have our supervisors, we still have coworkers, we still have all of that stuff showing up. But when I can just cut off my screen, right? Or when I know that meeting is over, I can go and in my own environment and just relax versus going back to my desk in an office where I still got to look at you across the room, the stress levels come down.
Mm-hmm.
And what Black people know, also what women know, I believe that women are very much aware, based on gender bias and stuff that comes up there, stuff that women don't have to deal with today, not being in an office space, right? So the stress levels of those things have gone down tremendously.
Yeah.
Hasn't gone away,
No.
but it's gone down.
So I'm going to add something, which is that, so this week, just to put us in a point in time, the governor of New York resigned, Cuomo, right?
Yeah.
Over a significant number of sexual harassment accusations. And what he said, he did not really apologize. He kind of half-assed apologized. But what he said was that the bar had changed, right? In other words, so this is the weirdest thing, right? Did you either of you catch this, right? Come on,
get me started.
Yeah, go ahead, get started, because then I'll make my point. Now, first of all, get started. Let's go.
That fuck. I've had it. And I think that this was an opportunity for him to show up in a healthy way, to admit to his wrongs. But no, he pushed it into a whole different belief system, that he thought he was in the right, that he thought he didn't do anything wrong, that he thought it was understood. No, it is harassment at the utmost level.
And what was amazing to me, again, is that what he said was, well, things have changed and I didn't really change with them. And when I heard that, I thought, wow, that is a code word for racism as well. Oh, my grandfather, who was an immigrant, a Jewish American immigrant from Russia, came to the United States, born in 1899. Now he's long passed. But he called black men boy. And I remember as an adult, asking him, why are you calling these adult men boy? He goes, because that's how I was raised. That's what I learned. He never thought about it. And then it becomes an accepted, because if you're in the dominant culture, then it becomes accepted, and then it becomes reinforced. And then you end up with assholes like Cuomo, who are using that as an excuse for completely unacceptable behavior. But when you put the context around race, it's like, oh no, that's not me.
Right. And when I want to point out that code word that you use when you say dominant, we're really talking about white.
Mm-hmm. And when I hear somebody say to me, well, why can't we all just get along? It's like, why can't you just accept things the way they are?
Right.
Why do things have to change?
Right. I'm comfortable. I'm good. I didn't do it. Why that is so good, Mark. I really appreciate that. That is so good because things do have to change. Right. Not only does it have to change on the way that we as men show up in the world and how we've been acculturated in this society, but white people also have to change in their attitudes around themselves and Black people and other immigrants. Mm-hmm. Right. And ultimately, we all have to do our own work. Right. Because as a man, have times changed? Absolutely. And the question is, was it appropriate in the past and now all of a sudden it's inappropriate, or has it always been inappropriate?
See, that's a really interesting question too, because,
no, it hasn't been appropriate.
Correct. Thank you.
Correct.
Cut to the chase.
Yeah, no.
No, it was never appropriate.
It was never appropriate.
It was never. Was slavery ever appropriate?
No.
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 No. So much of our humanity is given up in these things that had become or is societal norms. And how do we begin to say that this is a societal norm that is not right and has to change? And how do we also be patient and caring and compassionate and offer grace to each other as we go through this process?
Well, the only way I know, and I shouldn't say the only way, but I think you're absolutely right. And how do white people make space for everyone else to get their rightful place at the table without losing their place? So when I was in Chicago recently for a wedding, the wedding was on the southwest side, and Chicago is still a very, very segregated city in many ways. Certainly black and white, very segregated. But the wild card is Latinos because they kind of popped up everywhere. But I went to a restaurant on Chicago, the far south side. I won't call the name of it, but it's an old Italian American restaurant, way on the far 95th and Cicero, and 100% white in this restaurant, except for some of the servers. Okay, but most of the servers were white as well. And then a black couple came in, a young black couple came in, and I don't want to say that the temperature in the room changed. I mean, it wasn't like a movie where suddenly everyone, stopped. But I could visibly tell that some of the older white people in that restaurant looked at them and then they looked away. No, I'm not saying they called their name or created a stir or anything like that. And so you might say, was that, and I'm not saying even that a microaggression occurred. All I'm saying is that what I felt from that moment was, yeah, we made a lot of progress because black people are in a restaurant that white people would never have allowed them in, 30 years ago, even in Chicago. But also, like, did everyone feel welcoming and accepted in that situation?
Well, did the black people feel welcoming and acceptance?
That's what I'm at.
Did they notice, right, the looks, which I'm sure they did, right? And then how do you continue to go on? And that's where this word that sometimes grates on my nerves that we call resilience, right? Because I think that black people in America are the epitome of resilience with all of the crap that we have dealt with in this country. And at the same time, the word is being misused in a sense of saying that why can't you just be resilient? Why can't you just bounce back? And it's one thing for us to have used it and survived, but it's another thing when it becomes a bar that people are expected to meet. Why do I have to always be resilient? Why do I always have to resist? Why do I always have to deal with these internal feelings and say, well, I belong here, I can go anywhere that I want? And that within itself is multi-layered that we have to get into as well, because there had been this idea of white ice being colder, right? With some of when we look at some of I'm from Richmond, Virginia, right? And there's a 2nd Street there that one time was a thriving black economic community, right? Banks, stores, restaurants, hotels, all of that. And in every city, there is an area where black folks thrived. In Seattle, I think it's what was it?
The Central District.
The Central District, right? And those areas went kaput when integration happened because of this germ of internalized oppression that kept telling us that white ice is colder. Right. So instead of continuing to go and support the black restaurants, the black hotels, we went to the white restaurants and the white ones, dealing with the internal pressures and the feelings and the looks and all of that, and just ignoring it to whatever health detriments come from that internalized stress and internalized trauma that we felt, right? And so the question for me becomes, did that couple notice? what were they dealing with? Did they ignore it? Were they able to move on? What did they feel from the wait staff that came and helped them? Right? Did they have to think about, was anything going to be put in their food? You know, I mean, all of these thoughts come up, you know, in a place where you have to question whether or not you are welcomed into that. You know, it's one thing to say that I have a right to go somewhere and do something, but the question becomes, is it a welcoming environment where you feel at ease and at peace? Right. And with that, I want to, you know, and May, you had some looks earlier that I wish I could go back and record, based on with some of the stuff that has come up, and I'm wondering what's coming up. What are some of your expressions based on the probably 4 or 5 topics that we've hit just in the last 5 minutes?
Having grown up Asian, I'm half Chinese and half Japanese. I wasn't Chinese enough. I wasn't Japanese enough. And within our own Asian cultures, we are fighting amongst each other. It's full of shit as it is. That just drives me nuts. I mean, I know there's difference between jasmine rice and basmati rice and Japanese rice. Okay, fine. But that's not the point. I think the point here is, why can't we all get along? And I am believing that it really comes from a hereditary hostage. These limiting beliefs and these limiting formations that we've become cultured to, accustomed to, lived by, and called right. It's wrong. It's not only wrong, it's arcane. It's not only arcane, it's sick. And we have to be the beginning of noticing and saying something. Noticing and doing something. Yeah. I mean, I looked forward to confronting that asshole who hit me up in Fred Meyer and said, "Go home, you chink."
Wow.
Right.
I was thrilled to get up in his grill and say, "Hey, what kind of truck are you driving?" Toyota. Yeah. What kind of beer are you drinking? Asahi. Well, shut the fuck up. I didn't bring this disease here by myself. I didn't make you wear that mask. You're here because you're here. Now, everybody needs to be graceful, be compassionate, be open. This is our opportunity to change the face of life. This is our opportunity. We needed this disease to make this happen.
Yes, and you know, with, you know, our hearts go out to all of those who have suffered, you know, and who have experienced loss, you know, during this pandemic, and our hearts are with them, and we ask blessings for all of those and that have passed, and for their families as they continue on. And we have had some changes. You know, we are looking at issues a little deeper.
Yeah.
Technologically, I think that we have advanced maybe 10 years with the taking on of technology and information that moves us forward. You know, 3 years ago, I wouldn't have said that. I didn't believe that online learning worked. You know, now I don't believe that in-person learning works.
Yeah.
I don't want to go back. You know, I think that I am loving a virtual world, right? So it has brought some things, and a part of that is looking at each other deeply. And understanding. I mean, I don't with you know, blessings to George Floyd and his family and all of the other Black folks around his time, before him, and since, that have died. but I don't believe that we would be that the conversation would not be getting deeper if it had not been from COVID and we all were sitting at home and
Mm-hmm.
able to pay attention and not be able to say, oh, let me just get up and go to work. Let me go and do all of these other
Mm-hmm.
things.
And well, Enma, you want to say something?
Kevin, what would be one thing? What would be one thing that you would want your white brothers and sisters, your Asian brothers and sisters, your Mexican brothers and sisters, the rest of the population? What is one thing we can do to allow more homogenous appreciation and acceptance?
Well, what I would say, I'm feeling a need to go back and look up the definition of homogenous, right? Because what's coming to mind is, we're not all the same, right? It's like looking at a salad, right? And all of the ingredients that make the salad, right? When I'm eating a salad, I enjoy the carrot in the salad. I enjoy the broccoli in the salad. I enjoy the tomato in the salad, right? I enjoy the all of the salad dressing. I enjoy all of those things, right? So one, how do we acknowledge all of our individual and group uniqueness and be acceptance of that, and not say that we all have to be the same?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right? Ultimately, if I point to one thing that is broad enough to encompass what's necessary, it boils down to personal work.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
And y'all know that I am a Buddhist. And by the way, I lived in New Orleans for a year. I went to Tulane, and the only thing I took away, other than a deep appreciation for Cajun food and gumbo, is that I occasionally say y'all, which, by the way, completely surprises my Chicago and California and Seattle friends that I still say y'all, which is odd. But
Welcome.
anyway, which also reminds me that when I when I lived in New Orleans and I moved to California, and I still had some friends from New Orleans, and one of them looked at the other one and said, "If Mark moves to California, is he still a Yankee?" This is the kind of way people think. But anyway, I wanted to share something because what Kevin said and what Enmei said, I believe we have to create some space in the heart, right? White people have to create we white people have to create a space in the heart for other people. It's real easy for us to enjoy the appropriation of culture, right? We can enjoy, I mean, Enmei makes a killer Chinese chicken salad. I just had some. It was amazing. We can enjoy having sushi. We can enjoy having, like in Chicago, we had some wonderful food, soul food. But we also have to make, if we can make space in our stomach, we also need to make space in our heart, for other people and other cultures. And as a Buddhist, there's this contemporary Buddhist philosopher, Ikeda, who said something that really struck me. And he said, if we are to avoid proceeding foolishly towards self-destruction, we must learn with humility from our past mistakes and unwaveringly pursue the path of humanity in justice. And I just realized, white people, if you wanna know how we can all just get along, I think we're going to have to make some heart space for the people who have been injured by when we did not get along intentionally because of what white people have done in this country.
Yes, and you said something earlier, Mark. You said that how do we do that and keep our place, right? And when you
I
talk
heard that.
about that place, right, that's like being at the front of the line, right? And the question becomes, is it possible? Or that's the thing. No one wants to lose their place in line, right? Who wants to go to the back of the line, right?
And I think that's a flawed model. And I know that, this is how because in white class, if you want to think about American history from race plus class, upper class white people have manipulated lower class white people using racial fears. That's what happened in the South in the Confederacy. That's what's happened in Chicago in block busting and redlining and all that stuff. So white people in power used white people without power by pitting them against black people and other people of color. And so this whole idea of the line is yes, is there a social order in America? Yes, absolutely. But that social order is not fixed and should never be fixed. So this whole idea of losing place in line is in itself, it's a construct used to manipulate, I believe.
Absolutely. I heard this story a few weeks ago, and a sister, a black woman, told the story, and right now I can't think of what environment where it was to give appropriate credit for the story. But here it is. It was this white man and some village in some nation in Africa. And for those that don't know, Africa is a continent, and there are lots of countries within Africa, right? And then within those countries, all of the lines that have been drawn by colonialistic white nations, right? But anyway, that's not where I'm going. The story is, the white man said that he put and I'm paraphrasing, this isn't exactly, but put some candy over by a tree and went to this group of black children and said, there's some candy over there by the tree. If you all race there, whoever gets there first can have the candy. And what happened next was the children got together and they talked. And then they all joined hands and they all walked over to the tree together. And they got the candy and they all enjoyed the candy. And the white man went over and said, well, wait a minute. Why did you all do that? How one of you all could have had it all. And the response that they got back was, one of us would have been happy, but the rest of us would have been sad. So, and not wanting any of us to be sad, we all walked over together so that we all could be happy. Now, that's a paraphrase. That is not exact. Okay. But I think you get the point.
Yeah. Well,
Right.
So that winner take all mentality, when you add capitalism plus colonialism, then racism and class, you have a nasty mess.
Absolutely. And that's the complexity, right? Because we're often looking for these simple one solution thing, but what you just said is the complexity that we have to deal with, right? And for complex problems, we need complex solutions.
Okay, so
or simple solutions.
There you
what
go.
if it was the simple solution? Like, I know this sounds a little goofy, but water doesn't, if you put it in a square container, it's still water. You put it in a round container, it's still water. What I'm saying is, if we can all understand that we are all one, and no matter what container we are in, we are the same value. We are the same. And if we let water flow together, we can carve mountains. We can conquer anything. We can rumble the earth. But what I'm saying is, this type of traumatic conditioning that has been created hundreds and hundreds of years before us has to have a new ring, a new resonance, a new sound, a new intake. And I think it starts with taking even small action and being aware and allowing our children and our children's children to understand we are one, like water.
Absolutely. And water is complex in its makeup, in its molecule structure, right? Even though we don't see it. And then it changes forms, right? It can turn into steam, right? It can, all of those things to say that I think that part of our issue is that we do look for simple solutions. And when the simple doesn't come easily or quickly, then we grow frustrated and we want to move on.
Can't we all just get along?
Can we all just get along?
But
Right. And I think accepting the complexity of the issue begins to say that it's not one solution, but it's multiple things that have to happen at the same time for us to come to this,
well, I agree with you, and I think we're both of you are right, because I know, going back to the Buddhist tradition for a moment, Buddhism is root cause analysis, right? That, in other words, is cause and effect. And so what is the underlying cause that if that was changed, so many other things would also change? And so, to Kevin's point, you can't change institutionalized racism without changing institutions, and institutions are made up of people, and so they're complex. I think that's absolutely true. At the same time, those institutions will never change if the people don't change, and the only way the people are going to change is if their hearts change. If we want to change people's minds, I remember this whole thing about Vietnam winning the hearts and minds. It's been so, that phrase has been so, what's the right word? That phrase has been so degraded, but there is a truth to the idea of how do we, if we are able to communicate heart to heart, then I really believe anything is possible, because that's going back to the kind of heart space concept. But without a change of heart, then because we've been attacking institutionalized racism through laws and through regulations and through all those things, and they have absolutely had an impact without question, but we haven't solved the root cause of racism in America. And I don't know that we're any closer to solving it.
Kevin, do you believe that if we came to each other with less judgment? I mean, judgment is an interesting word. Like we all judge, but if we came to each other with less judgment, we only listened. We came with our ears. We came to listen, to be more introspective. Perhaps we'd understand more where one story came from.
Absolutely. I think what you're talking about is communicating to understand each other's reality.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Right. And it's within understanding each other's reality that we can grow closer. Right. And the other part that you said that is absolutely so key in May is without judgment.
Mm-hmm.
Right. What in life do we approach without judgment?
Right.
Yeah.
So interesting fact, and May, this, Mark, I don't know if you know that, if we've talked about it, but Kevin used to be a crackhead. Right. And when I was using crack cocaine and going downhill and went to jail, one of the things that I experienced was judgment.
Mm-hmm.
Because here I was, the successful person that people knew. And now all of a sudden it was like all of the success and all of the good things that I had done prior to then was out the window. Yeah. Because I saw judgment in people and how they treated me and what they thought and the expressions and what they didn't say. So one of the lessons that I got out of all of that is, how do you show up in a non-judgmental way? Right, that allows you to show up in your full humanity and allow other people to be in their full humanity, and however they may be, whatever condition that they may be in. Mm-hmm. Right. And that is something. Here's a question. Okay. So my mother used to tell me that I'm a pay learn person.
A what?
A pay learn person.
Okay. What does that mean?
That means that the lesson has to cost you something.
Oh.
Right. So some people, you can tell them the stove is hot. Don't go in to touch the stove. And they will believe you and they won't touch the stove.
But
I would
not Kevin.
not Kevin. Kevin has said, let me go and see if it's hot. Let me test it and put my hand on it and burn myself. Right. So for me to learn, I there were a lot of lessons that I got, or things that I experienced. Right. Today I work very hard to take the wisdom from others so that I don't necessarily have to learn the lesson, but I can learn from the wisdom that's being given. Right. So a question that I have is, can people learn to be non-judgmental without actually experiencing something that takes them down to a level in which they are judged, to understand how it feels to be judged, and then not to show up in those ways again?
The answer is yes. Okay. Because my feeling is, are we looking at it with instinct, fear, doubt, blame, any of those contexts or contextual beliefs of instinct? Or are we using our own intuition, which is a higher guidance system? It's an inner guidance system that says, for the highest and greatest good of all, this is the outcome. And I believe that if you are in your childlike state of mind, which means to be in a state of curiosity, to learn, to see, to just be present with, you can be in a space to release judgment. You can be in a space of just being present. And if we're using our instinct, the fear of losing our place, the fear of not being white enough, Asian enough, Chinese enough, Black enough, if we are living with fear and that feeling of instinctual protection of ourself and our ego, well, naturally, we're going to put up the walls. We're going to put up the bars, and we're going to say, you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong, because we're just fighting for a position. But if we can take that down and listen with our intuitive heart, our heart space self, or your karmic conditions, or your God voice, whatever you want to call that, yes, we can release judgment.
So we know it's possible. So the question is, here's another question, right? How do we get there?
Well, thank you, Anmei, because, and the question is a very important one. I think the first point is to realize that we are all judging all the time. In other words, like going back to my restaurant example, when the black couple came in, everyone in the restaurant, not everyone, but those people who noticed that these people came in, were immediately moving toward a place of judgment. I have no idea why those people came to the restaurant. Maybe they just want to have some great Italian food, or maybe they were making a statement. I have no idea. I can't possibly know, but I do know that just by looking, I'm much more attuned to the reactions and the responses of others than I have been in the past, especially in situations around race. And so I think the first point is to realize I am making a judgment. And is that judgment serving me? Because in certain cases, hey, look, like safety, judgment, making a judgment around safety can be important. But if that judgment is made because of race, if I judge all black men to be dangerous, I'm going to miss out on a lot of really great people. At the same time, there may be a moment where that judgment is important, especially in a situation where there is potential danger. But is there potential danger? If I judge that there's potential danger in every time I see a black male, I'm going to be missing out. And my heart will be closed. And we won't get there.
And that's absolutely true, because black people feel the same way. Right? If we feel fear every time we see a white man or a white woman, right, then our hearts may not be open for those opportunities. Right. So, that's with all of us. And that same apprehension is there, and we all have to learn to get there, right? And so then it goes back to, how do we get there, right? How do we set up conditions, or have enough people do their personal work, right, to begin their self-change and have it be noticeable, so that we all know that everyone is doing their work, right? So that we don't
Well,
show up with that judgment.
yeah, I mean, so I have a friend, she calls it radical compassion. And so we were talking. She's a woman in LA, and she's, does a lot of healing and such. And she and I were talking one time, and I said, people are so angry, and when I went to school in I grew up in Chicago, but I went to school in a little town in Wisconsin, Appleton, Wisconsin, Lawrence University. And when I arrived in Appleton, got off the bus, I started walking down College Avenue, and somebody said, hello. And then another person said, hello. Another person said, good morning. I was like, what planet are these people on? In Chicago, it's get out of my face. Don't talk to me. Don't look at me. Don't fuck with me. Get out of my face. I don't want to hear from you. I don't want to see you. I don't want to know you. Get the fuck out of my face. And here they are. Good morning. So I'm in Appleton. I'm there for a term, and, you walk down College Avenue. Good morning. Hello. And then I get back to Chicago, and I get off the bus, and I go, hello. And the person looks at me and goes, the fuck are you talking about? And I look back, and then I go, I'm not in Appleton anymore. But the thing is, this concept of radical compassion. So when I told that story to my friend, what she said to me is, Mark, the way that I learned to open my heart is when I'm driving down the street or walking down the street, even if I don't say good morning or hello, I say in my mind, I'm sending you love. I love you. I love you, and I want you to be happy. I don't know who you are, what your situation is, and I'm sending love, and I'm sending love, and I'm sending love, and I'm sending love. And I realized, wow, I am so not there. So I decided I'm going to try that. I'm sending you love. I'm sending, and look, I can't say that was something that made a radical shift in my life, but just the idea that, and so I started calling my friend called the love bomb. I'm on the bus in Chicago, and I'm sending the love bomb to everyone on this bus, or on the L. Everyone's in their shit. They're all unhappy. They're crazy. Someone's singing to themselves. Someone's trying to get some money. I'm just going to send a love bomb to everybody. And so these are all, I know they sound silly and so on, but the reason I mention them is that for me, it's like I have to do something. I have to do something to move the equation. And one of the things I learned in Buddhism is that environment is a reflection of me. So and I had a wise Buddhist friend once said to me, I was bitching about how screwed up the world was, and all my friends are jerks, and my boss is a jerk. And my friend looked at me and he says, Mark, he goes, if you think that you're an eagle, but you're surrounded by turkeys, he goes, the chances are you're a turkey. He said, but if you bring out your inner eagledom, you can soar into the vast sky of limitless possibility. And in a sense, that's what my friend was doing by sending love to people. Instead of waiting for them to change, instead of waiting for them to love her, she just decided to do this. And so when I have tried that, I have found that, yeah, it does. It absolutely opens the heart. There has to be a place in the heart to start all of these conversations and these important and challenging things that have to happen in order for society to truly change.
Since we're sharing wacky little stories of our childhood life, Joey called me a witch when I was 5 years old in elementary school. He called me a witch, and his definition of witch really hurt me. It was scary. It had a wart on her face, and she had a pointy hat, and she just came out on Halloween, and she scared everybody. Well, I took that home, and I cried, and I cried, and I cried, and I said, Joey called me a witch. So my mom says, I don't know what to do. I'm going to take you to our shaman. Boom. We go to shaman. Okay, shaman, 91-year-old Chinese guy with one hair coming out of his chin, that kind. So we go to his house. He says, why you cry? And he's very Chinese. Why you cry? And I said, Joey called me a witch. He says, oh, American witch, you know that kind? I said, yeah, black hat, wart on her nose, and she says magic spells, and they're really awful. He brings a book, this huge book out, and he shows me this book of Chinese fairies and witches, or Asian fairies, and they've got chiffon, and they've got wings, and they're blue, and they're pretty, and they fly, and they do nice things, and sparkle dust all over the place. And he said, go take this book with you. You show Joey. No, that his definition of witch, bad. Upgrade his definition. Okay. So I took it and I brought it to the teacher. And the teacher said, oh my God, this is so beautiful. And she said, look, class, Enmei brought us the book to share us the stories of another culture's beautiful fairies and witches. She brought out tissue paper and pipe cleaners and little sparkles. And she said, now everybody gets to make their own wings. Because she knew what I was struggling with. And that changed my life. It gave me an opportunity to recognize, wow, somebody may have one definition, and it's my job to show them that there are other definitions. And by having my teacher's help or assistance, she actually brought the entire classroom into that vision. Suddenly I was the popular witch. I was the one with the coolest wings, and I was then accepted. And that acceptance meant everything at 5 years old in Canoga Park, California, where the percentage was 99% white. And there was Maria, my Hispanic friend, and me. I believe that our opportunity to change someone's definition starts with a compassionate heart. And it's in alignment with what Mark says. It's in alignment with Kevin. Is that, yeah, the pay-learn thing is a very interesting thing that we've learned to hate. We've learned to judge. We've learned to shut people out or to make these statements within our head and not even know the truth. I encourage everyone to take an opportunity to use radical compassion, to use techniques that start with, I love it when. I love it when I meet new people. I love it when I learn something new. I love it when I can listen.
And upgrade your definition or definitions.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's deep. Well, we've had a real interesting conversation today.
Yes.
And we want to welcome anyone to come and write your comments about this or contact us if you have questions, even uncomfortable questions. Let's talk about them. Thank you, gentlemen, for brave space to Peace Bridge.
Thank you. Thank you all for joining us. And write your comments, contact us. Let's have that discussion. Add to our discussion.
Thanks, everybody. See you again.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Drop.